Matrix Resurrections is now out in theaters and on HBO Max, so it's time to rank all 4 of the Matrix films from worst to best. So let's get started. Welcome, movie watchers. Thank you guys for stopping by my channel. Today we'll be ranking all 4 of the Matrix films. Little side note, this was the first time I actually seen the Matrix films. I watched them in a span of a day, so I have a very clear list of how I would rank these movies. Spoilers, it's not very exciting. So leave your list down below. How would you rank all 4 of the Matrix films? I am only including the feature films, not the animated film in this list. Coming in at number 4 is Matrix Resurrections. I did appreciate the attempt to revive one of the most popular trilogies of all time, but the end result was a little bit disappointing. I found Resurrections to be quite dull. The film over relies on the previous film to the point that it feels in love with itself. It's so stuck in the past that it has a hard time moving forward. It brings back several characters in a very intriguing way, but when it comes down to it, it's all for the sake of nostalgia. If it's characters returning as themselves or characters appearing as someone new, I really had a hard time connecting with any of the characters within this film. The dialogue is dull and doesn't feel profound like the first film. It's all very short and there's no room for conversations to grow. It is visually stunning, but there is not one scene that stands out as memorable. I could easily pick a scene in each of the movies that stands out as my favorite. Down the road, that's going to be a very hard time for me because none of these scenes stand out as exciting or memorable. At its core, it centers around Neo and Trinity, so there is some sort of urgency and reasoning for having the story once again. This film is extremely meta. It talks about Warner Brothers and the Matrix trilogy. It does it for a good amount of time and it becomes a little bit odd. Coming in at number 3 is Matrix Revolution. The third film in the trilogy wraps up the storyline of Neo, but that doesn't mean that it's very satisfying. The characters of Trinity, Neo, Morpheus, they really take a back seat in this movie, and it's more focused on visuals rather than developing these characters and telling an intriguing storyline. The story of the threat of Agent Smith and the conflict is frustrating and fails to be as smart as the original. It's a visually stunning film, but lacks moments when compared to Matrix and Reloaded. It tries to deliver those really big moments and concluding the storyline of Agent Smith and Neo and having that all-out war, but since it is focused on that big war and everybody within it, the Matrix and the real world, it doesn't succeed on building the world and those intriguing moments that were set up in that very first film. Coming at number 2 is Matrix Reloaded. While this film succeeds in being flashier and more action-packed, it fails on telling a compelling story. The story significantly drags when it attempts to build on the world set up in the first film. The lack of urgency doesn't make the conflict as important as the first film. There are some really good action scenes within here. The highway sequence with the trucks, Agent Smith, multiple Agent Smiths, and Neo. There is some really good action scenes within this film, and it succeeds on being flashier. The visuals are well done compared to the first film. It's very thrilling at times. I just didn't find the story to be very compelling, and it drags for a lot of the film. It feels as almost 2 and 3 could have been combined into one film. There are key elements thrown into Matrix Reloaded, but I could take a lot out and combine 2 and 3 and it would still be the same story. But coming in at number 1 is the obvious choice, The Matrix. This is regarded as one of the best sci-fi films of all time. I have not seen it up until just a few days ago. I remember my father having all of the VHSs for the Matrix films, and I'm aware of how popular these movies are. Just never got around to seeing it. This film feels incredibly grounded despite its large world and complicated plot. Great world building with conflict between the Matrix and the real world, which is perfectly executed. There's intense action scenes involving Agent Smith and Neo, and Keanu Reeves fits into the storyline with the characters very well. He fits right alongside Morpheus and Trinity to where they feel very iconic as a trio. Lawrence Fishburne and Carrie Ann Moss are perfect in their roles. I appreciated the world building, but I like how grounded it did feel. It felt very small compared to Reloaded, Revolution, and Resurrection, despite everything that it tries to cover. The war, the Matrix, the real world. I was able to really understand the plot, get invested within it, and understand these characters, and really like the action scenes within here, because these are some iconic moments that we see in cinema really play out nicely within this movie. I understand why people really like The Matrix and are frustrated with the 3 other films. It's an incredible film filled with great action, great characters, that is bursting with sci-fi that is so awesome to watch. I had a great time watching all 4 of the Matrix films. Some of them are not my favorite films of all time. The Matrix is up there. It's a really good film, and I'm really glad that I did sit down and watch all 4 of them pretty much back to back. So I had a great time watching these movies. So let me know in the comment section down below, how would you rank all 4 of the Matrix films? And stay tuned for more up and coming ranking videos in 2022. My name is Just Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.